Hi folks, welcome to ITOM Spotlight, and today we have with us Sélim. Hi Sélim, it's nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course. My name is Sélim Ourtani. I'm the founder from a company called Sertalink, based in Belgium. And I'm here to share my experience of observability and also, of course, cybersecurity.
So it's great to have you here. And I think today we're going to be talking about a lot of trends in the Belgian market specifically. So let's start off with the first thing, digital first interactions. We are seeing that it's becoming a norm in Belgium these days. And how has that changed the customer expectations regarding, let it be speed, reliability, personalization of digital services?
Yeah. So my first impression is that every end user expects everything in loading very fast. Everything needs to be seamless, needs to be reactive, needs to be responsive, needs to be at the same time protected with security. So the end user experience is having the data, the platform available with the 99.9 experience. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Because when you say 99.9% availability, yeah, I think the expectations that comes with having a product that helps you do that will also evolve. So, given that the case, what specific capabilities are users looking for? The gaps that they want to fill to have a solution that helps them give that 99.9% availability.
Yeah. So it comes to, first of all, the end-to-end visibility from the front end to the back end to the network part. On the other hand, we need more insights on the user's experience. Having a good understanding there will allow us to give more quality back to the end user experience. And then with that behavioral analysis, understanding the interactions of the end user will help us also optimize and personalize the experience for the end user. And the last thing, having AI parts of this story will be a big differentiator because this will help us to find faster the root causes of an incident.
True, agreed. So let's dive a little bit on the behavioral analytics part, because I think that's where security also comes into play. Because when we say we're going to analyze how the data is flowing, who's using what, and we need that visibility, which of course observability gives. But what is the role of observability in enabling that security there?
Yeah. So there are two aspects, right? We have the identity part, the user behavioral part, which needs to be monitored and will be monitored. But on the other hand, we have the network part. So more thinking towards network detection and response capabilities, where we'll be able to detect the unknown unknowns, as we would say in cybersecurity. Patterns of pass the hash or something malicious of a hack technique that was done through the network will be able to be detected. And then, of course, we can do a proper response towards to stop the possible threats.
So let's dive a little bit further, because when you say we're going to identify anomalous patterns in the traffic, how do we analyze the traffic? So do we use a specific network flow analyzer, or should it be a part of a more comprehensive tool that gives you both the traffic, where it's coming from, who's the user, who's the source of the traffic, and like all the other related network aspects of it?
So typically how we would do it is by collecting traffic from, example, PCAP or network resources, collecting these packets, analyzing them using ML and AI. Based on patterns, we will detect whether a specific communication package has something malicious in it, even if it's encrypted. So this allows us to be more reactive and responsive towards a possible threat, and almost agentless.
True, so agentless. And like you said, AI is helping now in security. So how further is it helping? Like, has it made things more efficient, or has it made more effective? Like, you're much more capable to easily identify this is the threat, or how is it?
Yeah, so I think today AI is still a tool. It helps us to enable to detect faster incidents. But there is still a human aspect that we need to consider. Human interaction is there to be able to, properly understand the risk and the incident that's there, and whether the effectively detected, the detected alert was a proper false positive or not. No.
And for that, like as you pointed out, the network is huge, and there are going to be a lot of users. We're going to see a lot of traffic, and yes, we do have AI, which makes things a bit simpler. But what role does an observability solution play here, specifically, if you could give me some?
So when we look at typically observability, we want to move away from just the why. We need to add more context. So we are thinking on adding the what. And if you think about that specifically, yes, we can detect a possible incident or a problem in a network, but then we actually need more information. So it could be, example, we want to understand the microservice from the possible incident, or maybe something that is related towards a database query that was badly loaded. So we want to understand better in detail the root cause than just saying the service is down without really understanding the incident.
True. So when you mention microservices and databases, so it obviously means that observability does have to give you visibility over the on-premise solutions and the cloud. Yeah. So what's your take on that? How does observability help?
So my intake in regards of the challenges for observability or the tools as such, we could classify them with the following. We need, first of all, strategy, the hybrid approach coverage, multi-cloud approach need to be also covered for observability. And then we could say we need to be able to adopt standards like open telemetry, ingest all this open data so that we can understand proper the context of different telemetry out there, whether it's network or end user telemetry. On the other hand, we need a very vendor agnostic approach, very open, so that we can ingest from all different third-party vendors in the markets the necessary data. And as a third point, API is very important towards cloud. So if we have a proper API understanding from an end-to-end perspective, we can ingest all different data together and integrate properly for observability.
True. So like you said, the approach that you just offered, open telemetry and the integrations with API, I think that does tie in a lot of areas where there is less visibility these days. But there's also a challenge that the legacy systems, they aren't much tuned to modern approaches like open telemetry and etc. So how do we overcome the limitations of legacy systems?
Yeah. So legacy systems, first of all, they typically work siloed. So it's not a platform, it's a SaaS solution specifically with one function, or maybe an on-prem solution. So they were limited in functionality, not scalable, not, how to say this, proper insights were is possible to be collected to understand what's really going on. And then I think the big challenge is no understanding for the modern approach of DevSecOps or DevOps, or even towards containerization, which are siloed.
The licensing fees for those
tools.
Or
for even for the people that are working on it for day-to-day. So it's also a challenge.
So like you've mentioned, when using legacy systems, we have challenges like siloed data and a lot of other factors as well. I'm sure this would be a very costly mistake for organizations. So what's your take on that?
Right. Typically, if you're going to a siloed approach, that means, first of all, data is siloed, but also the end user experience is siloed, meaning that an end user will have to work in multiple screens. For the organization means multiple licenses to be bought. And at the same time, for the resource, he needs to be skilled in every of those solutions. So that's another cost. So on the siloed data approach, you should better go to a platform approach. On the other point, you would have limited scalability. Limited scalability in cloud is expensive, so that becomes automatically costly. So it should be monitored very correctly to avoid extra costs. So for slow insights, the mean time to repair will be next challenge, meaning that if you cannot repair something in time, it will bring reputational damage for an organization. Reputational damage gives us following action, loss of customers, and in the end, a lot of loss in cost.
Sure, I think we can all agree with that. So now shifting focus to AI. We've seen an increase in integration of AI ops into healthcare practices in Belgium. So how has this trend influenced your organization's approach to leveraging observability for maintaining, system reliability and patient care standards?
Right. So AI will definitely help in predicting system failures in advance. So being fast in response and fixing an incident. On the other hand, being able to detect anomalies in time So that's also something allowing us to have a more reliable system. And on the other hand, I think it will help us a lot in improving compliance to maintain the quality of the patients.
I think we can all agree on that. So building on that, how do you ensure compliance and data privacy regulations such as GDPR, especially, since it's becoming very costly to lose that or, pay penalties with compliance like GDPR, while implementing AI-driven observability tools in your organization?
So I think first of all, AI, we need to find ways to minimize the data, meaning just use the necessary data for doing the learning with AI. So anonymization, so basically removing the patient data and all that stuff will be very important with AI, because we don't want AI to do learning on private data of a person.
Agreed.
We need to have proper audit trails in place to understand how AI did specific data indexing and ML on that data. And then we need to find also possible vendor assessments. So basically we want to understand whether these vendors that are doing observability with AI are actually complying with GDPR. So walk through a questionnaire, third-party questionnaire, and review that in security perspective.
So could you tell us a little bit more in detail about the network detection and response part?
Right. So what we've seen in the Belgian markets in the last 2 years is the growth from EDR towards, so initially EPP and the antivirus that went to EDR. And from EDR, people start realizing, what about assets that are not managed? So we're thinking about clients where we cannot install an agent on, etc. So for that visibility, but also security and understanding what happens on network, we need NDR. So what we've seen, the tendency are people are investing in solutions for NDR, allowing them to do a full coverage of the network on security perspective, while they can detect anomalies on the network. They could detect data exfiltration. They could detect where there is maybe a hack going on that moment. So that's something we've seen typically growing. Don't underestimate as well, we have NIS2 that came into effect. NIS2 is also asking us to monitor the network. So that's an important one, but also at the same time to collect logs. So we need to collect as much as possible telemetry from different sources on the network, firewalls, switches, cloud infrastructures. And all that data needs to be kept together for better understanding when there is an incident, we should be able to do a proper incident response. So that data should be used, right? So typically what we have, we keep the data for 1 year in cases of an incident.
Okay, so maybe could you give us a best practice kind of tips and tricks for an organization that is newly deploying an NDR solution? How do they get started with it?
So NDR, since we have AI, we need learning, right? So typically what happens, and even if there is an incident, I'm just going to explain it also like that. So if somebody is in a post-breach situation, typically what we would do is install a box, NDR solution or some solution, a server. Basically, we install the software and we collected PCAPs from the switches or the core switch.
Okay.
From the moment we install it, we need to allow it some learning. So the learning can take maybe 1 week to 2 weeks for a proper learning of the network. Once it's understood, let's say the algorithm of the AI will actually determine what is good and what is bad from traffic.
Okay, so we need to give it that learning curve, the learning data.
That's the machine learning curve indeed, because it understands what traffic is normal from the corporate environments versus what is typically known, because they already have the learning, of course, in the system to understand this typical traffic is a typical hacking traffic, you could say it like that.
So I mean the threat intelligence part that's already
threat intelligence part will also augment that capability. So understanding the from to, understanding what IP is being reached towards clouds as a command and a control server will be then detected, and on that they can cut the communications.
Well, that's interesting. But how about on a day-to-day basis? Is NDR really necessary for an organization that is going to use it on an everyday basis, not just when a breach has happened?
No. So in my opinion, if you understand security, you should have NDR in place. We have too much nowadays devices coming in and going out in the office. Bring your own device, corporate device, etc. So you want to have full coverage. But NDR is not only on the network part, on the on-premise part, can also be cloud infrastructure. So it's actually a hybrid approach. So in my opinion, yes, you should have it. It should be part also of your SOC strategy. So if you have a SOC and with the SIEM solution, you should have an NDR solution to be able to detect anomalies or unknowns in your network.
Unknowns.
Yeah.
So like you said, BYOD policies, bring your own device policies, has become something that you cannot not do. So let's say an organization is actively encouraging users to bring their own devices. In those cases, what are the best practices that they should have in place apart from NDR to make sure that these devices do not become malicious threat actors that intrude into their network?
So if I'm just thinking very quickly a mobile phone, right?
Mobile phone, yeah.
And sometimes it's difficult. How do we manage? But at the same time, people want to have that flexibility like corporate devices. You want to open your mails, you want to work. So as an organization, you are in a position at least to ask an end user if they want to do their work on their private device, at least to have some controls check done.
Okay.
Controls checks could be if you want to open your mails from the organization, you would need to install, example, an antivirus, basic APP solution. And the APP solution or the solution that is installed on this mobile device will do a few checks. Is the system up to date? It will avoid you to be clicking on a bad URL or an IP that is known through threat intelligence to being opened on your mobile phone.
True.
So there are some mechanisms they could enforce in that regard. Or on the other hand, with NDR, you will be able to detect also these anomalies or bad IP addresses being addressed. And out of that perspective, you could also do actions in breaking connectivity or doing a possible response to protect that bring your own device.
So from the scenario you just said, like mobile phones in a corporate setup, would an preventive measure like network segmentation work?
No, network segmentation would be good for mobile phones, example, or bring your own devices.
Bring your own devices.
But then again, nowadays you can say, I'm again not against the segmentation, right? But nowadays we put a lot of data in the cloud, so and people access it with a bring your own device, private device at home, corporate device, mobile phone, tablet. So it's important that we control the data, which is really in the cloud, have proper security controls on that, and understand how the data is being used by the end user.
So on the flows, we need to have more control on the data flow part.
Correct.
Agreed. So what role does firewall logs play in this? Like, how do we control the data flow from on-premise to a remote site or to cloud?
Yeah. So again, firewalls is another type of concept, in my opinion. It will allow you to say from to where you can go to. So you need to have, actually, I call it more static policies. You would say what's allowed and what's not allowed. And out of that, the end user experience will actually happen. So if you say these domains or websites should not be loaded, the end user will not have access to that specific traffic, websites. Excuse me. But on the other hand, if the end user goes away from the corporate network, then all these policies goes away. So we should go in towards a zero trust model, where you allow the experience to be seamless for the end user. So it's like a VPN always on concept.
Always on.
Allowing you, whether you're within the organization or outside the organization, always to have the same policy and determining based on adaptive thresholds and so on, what condition is allowed or not to do to access data.
So all of these NDR, zero trust architectures, firewall policies, network segmentation, all of this has
it's all getting consolidated
closer, and connected. So I think that's a new approach, because usually security used to be different, IT operations, management different. So now all of them are being integrated. So do you expect in the future IT operations management to be more closely tied to security, with integrations and APIs, like you mentioned earlier? So do you expect that's where we are going, or is it still going to be?
We've seen it in the past. We had infrastructure and network was one team, and we had security, which was really the more compliance part, and you could say more boring. But then again, because they made the rules, right? But then again, what we see today is really the converge of the two domains coming together, network
security and
security.
Network.
They really grow into each other.
Wow. Okay. I think that was insightful.
Thank you for having me.
And folks, that wraps up the episode today. Stay tuned for more episodes.